Hey, this is Matthew Ricks, and today on the Music Business Newsletter, we got an email from a female artist, wannabe music industry executive who's been listening to the Matrix Minute for a few years. And before she dives in, she wants me to help clarify some things about the music industry. But before we dive into that email, if you have a question on the music industry that you'd like for me to answer, just simply go to MatthewRicks.com, click submit your question, give me as many details as possible, and I will answer it here on the channel. Now for the email. She says, "Hey, Matthew, I've been following the Matrix Minute for a couple of years now." Well, thank you for listening to the Matrix Minute. We got a brand new bunch of them coming out here. Some personal stories that I want to share with you, some industry stuff. I'm really excited about what's coming probably by the time this newsletter gets out to you. She says, "And I just want to say I really respect how you talk about the music business and who you are as a person." Well, thank you. I make no apologies for who I am, and I appreciate you tuning in. She says, "You don't make it sound easy and you don't oversell things, which honestly is rare in an industry where people are always trying to charge a monthly fee to give you information." I mean, I've said this for years. The thing with the music industry is that people always try to act like if I give you my stories, then I'm going to be out of work. If I give you advice, then no one's going to want me. I had a situation happen a couple of weeks ago where an artist came to town and I hooked her up with a producer friend of mine. They did a songwriting session. Song's great. She's going to cut it. And she even asked, she's like, "What do you get out of this?" And I was like, "I want you to thank me when you win a Grammy. That's all." I always say it's nice to be important, but sometimes it's more important to be nice. And I just love helping people out. That's why I do this. That's why, we're not doing a subscription service or a paid wall or, join my Patreon or buy some book. I haven't written a book. I don't plan on writing a book, but, I appreciate your honest take. She says, "A lot of what you've said has helped me slow down and think more clearly about decisions I was about to make too quickly. I'm a 25-year-old artist, independent artist, based in Dubuque, Iowa." I've been to Dubuque before. It was cold, man. She says, "I write and record my own music. I do alternative music. I'm currently looking for a band. And over the past couple of years, I've been taking things more seriously." She says, "I've released a handful of singles, have a small engaged following, and is starting to get a little bit of attention here in Dubuque." Well, there you go. Slow and steady wins the race every single time, is what I say. She says, "From the outside, it probably looks like things are moving in the right direction. But the more I step into this world of the music industry, the more I realize there's a whole side of the industry that no one really explains. The inner workings of how things actually move behind the scenes." I don't know if I agree with that. There's, Reddit sometimes can be helpful. Bob Lentz, he puts out a music business newsletter. He sends like 7 a day. I think Bob, all he does is just send out emails. And some of the stuff is really good on the inner workings. I try to give you as much information as possible without breaking confidentiality, or I try to always protect the names because it's just, if you start talking, you will lose work and friends very quickly. And that's just a good lesson in life. It's not your place to gossip about people. It's not your place. If somebody goes and has lunch with you, it's not your place to go and brag about it. If they want to, let them, but it's not your place. She says, "Lately, I've had a few situations come up that made me start questioning things. I've had people reach out offering opportunities, management conversations, small label interest, even someone mentioning they could help open doors if I was willing to invest in certain campaigns." This is the second email now that we've received from artists who their reach is just starting to go up. They have little to minimal impact in the industry, but they're starting to get some people coming in, indie labels, people talking about management deals, and there's always money that needs to be paid. There's always a monthly retainer that they want, and they believe in you so much. Red flag, run. She says, "None of it has been outright shady, but none of it has been clearly defined either. It's a lot of vague language, a lot of 'we believe in you,' and not a lot of specifics." Okay, well, right there should be your warning sign to run. If somebody says they want to work with you and they're just gaslighting you and they're just blowing a bunch of smoke up your skirt, but they're not going to tell you actually what they do, and they don't have timelines, they don't have anything. But they just want, they want you to send them Bitcoin or PayPal or send them money. And those people are going to burn you. And a lot of times they'll take your music as well, or they'll get your Spotify page shut down and you won't be able to release music on Spotify as being an artist. It happens all the time. She says, "I'm realizing I don't fully understand how decisions actually get made in this industry. For example, How do artists get chosen for opportunities like tours, opening slots, or playlists? Okay, well, those are three different things. How do you get opportunities for tours? It really breaks down into just a few separate lanes. One, you can buy onto a tour as an opening spot. Those typically, I mean, unless you're opening for Metallica, and you got the money and you're going to have 70,000 people watching you. I have never been a fan of an artist buying onto a tour as an introducing artist because you get usually 10 minutes, 15 minutes. It's usually the merch line, the bear line, the food line artist. People are getting situated. They're going to the bathroom. And artists a lot of times pay good money that they have to recoup from their record label. So to get on tours like that, usually not great. I've been to a ton of concerts with the introducing artist and I could care less because typically the sound is horrible. There's no show. Nobody's really caring. And you're just hoping for like 30 seconds of a great moment. Opening slots for shows. That happens by you contacting local promoters who are bringing a show in. They have to find a spot, they have to find an opener for that show that's happening in that town. Typically the way that works is they want you to sell 50 tickets, 100 tickets, whatever. You don't get a cut of it. Maybe sometimes you get $1 or something, but you buy those tickets ahead of time and then you sell them or give them away to your friends. And for playlist, it really is an algorithm game. There is no such thing as a company who's going to be able to quote unquote pitch your music to Spotify or Apple Music to get you on one of their playlists. There are people who will put you on a playlist and they'll have 200,000 followers and they're all bot accounts from Nigeria. And then that account will get shut down. Your algorithm's going to get completely messed up forever. So playlist, it is a gamble. The best way to get playlist placement with Spotify, Apple Music, direct all your fans to Spotify to listen to your music. The algorithm will pick that up. They'll notice a trend and they'll start putting you on smaller release radars. They'll start putting you on smaller playlists if there's enough organic, real human being traffic that goes to it. She says, are relationships truly driving force or is it data and numbers? Nope, relationships are everything. The quality of your life depends on the quality of your relationships. If you don't have any relationships in the music industry, that's fine. But if you have a song goes viral, you'll start having real relationships. You'll start having people, and then you have to decipher. See, everybody wants to go viral. But if you don't have any support, you don't have any backing, you don't have any traction, then if you don't have a team, then you're going to have all these people coming in. And in that moment, while you're going viral and everything's happening, you're going to have to break down and decipher who you can trust and who you can't. It's better to get a team now while you're young who can work with you that you trust, that they're not charging you a monthly retainer. They're not doing any of this shady stuff. They actually have a plan. It's not an overnight plan. It's a long drawn out plan. And then if you do pop and you do go viral, you're going to have some gatekeepers in place to protect you from the people who are going to come in and try to steal everything and they'll try to screw you over. Happens all the time. What happens after you have the relationships is, they want to see your numbers. They want to see the data. You could be a great person and everybody in the industry knows somebody like this. They're a great person. You try to help them out. It just doesn't click. It's just what it is. Usually those people go on to do other amazing things in the industry. They might become a manager. They might become a songwriter, producer, whatever. I know a lot of producers in town, they had bands. They were signed to deals and it didn't work out. But then they became producers and they've 10x their entire lives by being producers. And they use that talent and they use what they learned as being an artist who didn't succeed, getting dropped, having bad tours, and they kind of help the artists they're producing. So it begins with relationships and then it goes into data and numbers. She says, when someone says they have connections, what does that actually mean in practical terms? That they don't. When someone tells you I have connections, they don't. It's just the way it is. Like I've never bragged about my connections. I don't even take pictures with my friends who are in the industry. The only time I will is if it's something that's completely outrageous and funny, and I kind of make myself seem like the pro wrestling heel. But when I'm hanging out with my friends who are in the industry, when I'm hanging out with artists, I never take pictures with them and I never post them. If they want to, that's great. But I do not want, I ain't trying to pimp my friendships to, grow the Matrix Minute or grow my consulting business or grow the YouTube channel. I'll never do it. And I never talk about the work I do. I never talk about the artist I'm working with. I never talk about the songs I'm doing. I don't even do that in the industry. And you might be going, well, don't you have to sell yourself? No, because if you do a good enough job and you treat people right, it's a word of mouth industry. And so they'll talk about you and they'll be like, oh, well, here, why don't you call Rick's? I mean, I don't even have a resume. I never have, because I let other people talk for me. So anybody who goes around saying they have connections, they don't have connections. They might know, like, the cousin of somebody who's the assistant of somebody, because you do realize that most of your quote unquote connections are just real friendships, actually. And you don't want to exploit your friendship. You don't want to be that person in the industry who's known as you're a leech. Like, you only come around when you want something. My closest friends in the music industry, people that I rely on, people who I trust, and they know all the mess. They know the good stuff. They know the bad stuff. They know the personal stuff. I'll never take a picture with them. I will never talk about them publicly, because I'm not exploiting that friendship that I believe God gave me. And I've grown from it, and I hope they've grown from it to get likes or to get business or whatever. So to answer your question, if someone says they have connections, they don't. They don't brag about it. She says, how much of this industry runs on real strategy versus perception and timing? It's a mixture of all three. You got to have a strategy. You got to have a strategy for anything. If you're a parent, you got to have a strategy of how you're going to parent. If you want to lose weight, you got to have a strategy for how you're going to lose weight. So if you're working with an artist in the industry, you better have a strategy. But most times when you run into these guys, when you're small and they're just throwing around buzzwords, they don't have a strategy. They're just gaslighting you, and they're just trying to give you a bunch of nice words so you get excited. I mean, I know an artist right now who's working with a company, and she's under an NDA. She can't even tell people who she's working with. And she told me this, and I was like, that is insanity. She's like, yeah, they like to be private. And I'm just like, yo. And I said, how long is the NDA? And it's like indefinitely. And I'm like, they're going to screw you over. And I told her, they're going to screw you over, and then you're not going to be able to talk. I've never heard of anything like that. So you do want somebody who has a real strategy. If you're talking to a manager, if you're talking to a record label, they should be able to give you a blueprint. Now, they're not going to give you everything in the beginning, but there should also be a track record. There should also be a track record of, like, you can contact these people and they can tell you what we do. It's not just a bunch of filler words or things to get you hyped up or whatever. Then it becomes the perception and timing. Yeah, you better, perception is reality. Doesn't matter how good you are. If people think you're a bum, if people think you're a junkie, if people think you're a lunatic, if that's what you portray online, perception is reality. That will be the reality. And then timing. Yeah. I mean, I've worked with artists before that. I mean, we were, when I was in A&R, we were 3 years behind. We were 3 years ahead of the curve. And there were bands that I worked with that the albums were phenomenal. And there was one, I was working with I signed a metalcore band. The album was brilliant. We had the screamer, the singer, the whole thing. And it bombed. We're talking hundreds of CDs sold back in the day. Hundreds. If we would have released it 2 years later, it would have been one of the biggest things, because at that point, the genre had shifted. So timing is incredibly important. She says, I think what I'm struggling with is the gap between what's said publicly and what actually happens privately. I don't know why you'd be struggling with that if you are, you're 25. So, okay, you've been in a relationship. Hopefully you're not one of these people who fights with your significant other and posts it online. Not a good look for people. So yeah, there is stuff that happens publicly, and then there's stuff that happens privately. Publicly, if you're talking to a new artist, here's another tip for you. Publicly, if you see an artist who's like, oh yeah, we're meeting with blah, 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 or we're talking with this. And I've seen artists before who were trying to play big shot. Like, yeah, we're meeting with Universal next week. And I'm like, no, you're not. No, you're not. Because before you meet with them, you're signing an NDA that you're not going to talk about this, because we don't want anybody else in the industry knowing who we're meeting with. And it's like, sign this NDA. And your lawyer's going to tell you, you don't tell anybody. You don't even tell your mama who you're meeting with, because you don't want it to get out. Because I've seen deals blow up before because artists ran their mouths. So publicly you go, yeah, we're meeting with some people. And privately, you're meeting with Warner, Sony, whatever. So in the industry in the industry side, you're working with an artist, you're like, yeah, this artist is great. We love them. And privately, you're like, we're going to drop this lunatic. Like, they're crazy and I'm crazy, and our two types of crazy do not mesh well together. So there is a lot of stuff that does happen publicly. Publicly is a lot of smoke and mirrors. It's a lot of hype. Privately is when you're getting called into the office because, you posted this and we had to take it down instantly because you almost ruined your career. She says, publicly, everything sounds structured, build your audience, release consistency, grow your numbers. But behind the scenes, it feels like there's another layer that isn't talked about as openly. Well, publicly, when they're telling you to build your audience, release consistently, grow your numbers, they want to see what you're going to do. If a manager comes to you and tells you, I want to work with you, and during this time while we're courting each other and we're vibe checking everything, I want to see you build your numbers up. I want to see you put some new music out there. I want to see these Spotify numbers grow. What they are doing in that moment is they want to see, one, if you take instruction well. They also want to see if, maybe you got a song that has 500,000 streams on Spotify, but everything else has 800 plays. They want to see why that got to 500,000. They want to see if it was just kind of like a flash moment or if there's consistency. They want to see if you're going to work, because you don't know how many artists will talk a big game, but they'll never do anything, or they're waiting for everybody else to do it for them. So yeah, publicly, we're going to tell you to, build your audience, grow your numbers, because we want to see what you do. And honestly, a lot of times you have a number in mind, what you want to see them do, and you want to see them get to that number. I have worked with artists before where I'm like, I need you to get your tour dates up. I need you to get your numbers up. Well, what do you want us to get to? Don't worry about that. Just do it. Because you want to see how much effort they're going to put into. She says, but behind the scenes, it feels like there's another layer that isn't talked about as openly. Of course. Why would I give you this? Why would I give you the blueprint? Why would I tell you what the number is? Because here's the thing. If I say, hey, look, I want you to get your song up to 100,000 streams, but you get it. But then if I keep my mouth shut, you get to 300,000 streams. Why would I tell you to get to 100,000? Because then you're going to stop. Because here's the other thing is, if I give you a number that I want you to achieve, but then while you're doing that, I notice something I don't like, I'm going to pause and just see what you do. Because I don't want to give you my word that, if you get to 100,000, I'm going to work with you. And then you get to 99,000, all of a sudden I realize you're a lunatic. I don't want to be on the hook for that. She says, I don't want to be naive walking into situations I don't fully understand. That's good. Here's the thing. Anybody talks to you, they don't give you actual game plan. They don't give you dates. They just give you a bunch of buzzwords. Run. Just run. She says, at the same time, I don't want to become overly cynical and assume everything is a scam or a game. Anybody's coming to you and wants to work with you, and they have this long history and they have connections, and they should be able to give you reputable people that they work with that they can vouch for them. You should be able to look at artists that they work with and see their track record. You should be able to contact those artists and ask them what's going on. Now, just because somebody says they work with them doesn't mean they actually do. We see that's all the time with playlist placement that they go, well, we work with Drake. No, you just added Drake to a playlist that you created with a bunch of bots. Trust but verify is what Ronald Reagan always said. If somebody comes to you and they want to work with you, they should be able to give you references. You should be able to see numbers. You should be able to talk to people. That is one way that you can protect yourself. And the more you protect yourself, you'll be able to spot the scams a lot quicker, and you won't become cynical because you'll be in the know. She says, so I guess my real question is, how does the music industry actually function behind the curtain? And what should artists like me be paying attention to that no one is saying out loud? I say it out loud all the time. Look for people who got a plan. Look for people who they're not going to charge you any money monthly. They're going to take a percentage because they're going to roll the dice on, we're going to put our effort, we're going to put our machine, we're going to put our talents behind, and we're going to get paid in the back end. We're going to get paid down the road. Anybody comes to you, they want a monthly retainer, run. I don't care if it's a record label, booking agent, management, publicist, whatever. They want a monthly retainer, run. If you're a young artist, I mentioned publicists. If you're a young artist, no publicist should be wanting to work with you anyways. There's nothing they're going to be able to cover that's going to get traction for them. No magazine's going to pick you up if you're playing just in Dubuque, Iowa, or any small town. They're going to take your money and they're going to run. So the thing you got to look for and you got to pay attention to is people who want to work with you on percentages. Also, they don't own your music. They don't own your name. They don't own anything. They get a percentage based on the revenue that comes in from streaming, the revenue that comes in from shows, and the revenue that comes in from merchandise. She says, I'm not looking for shortcuts. Doesn't sound like you are. She says, I just want clarity so I can move wisely and not get caught up in the things that don't actually move my career forward. You want to move your career forward, you got to be smart about it. Just because it sounds good, just because they say they have connections, but they can't tell you who, they're throwing around names that, probably doesn't sound right. They're probably running a scam. If they cannot show you, they have all these connections, but they can't show you proof of anything, they're running a scam. If they want money from you every month, they're running a scam. If they don't live off of percentages, then they don't really have their connections because they know how this industry works. She says, thanks again for everything you've shared over the years with the Matrix Minute. It's made a big difference. Sarah. Well, Sarah, thank you. I hope Dubuque is getting warm. Shout out to Iowa. It's the flattest state in America. But yeah, I hope I answered your questions. Anybody's coming to you guys, they're throwing around big names. They're throwing around buzzwords. They have no plan. You can't see any of the work they've ever done. I mean, look, like I could go to a new artist today and go, just look at the Matrix Minute. I got a song that's approaching. I got one track of the Matrix Minute that's approaching 1 million plays. I obviously know what I'm doing. You know, I interview artists all the time. Like I have connections with those people. I don't brag about that stuff, but if you're going around using buzzwords, you should be able to point to something that's not just an artist on a playlist that you put on that playlist and you say, yeah, we work with them. And once again, if anybody wants money from you every month as a retainer, run as far as you possibly can. But thank you for the email, Sarah. If you have a question on the music industry that you'd like for me to answer, just simply go to MatthewRicks.com, click submit your question, give me as many details as possible. We'll answer it here on the channel. I am Matthew Ricks, and until next time, I will talk to you later.